From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and Chief Digital Strategist at Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I have Kira Shishkin with me, and Kira and I are going to talk about his interesting product called Informed. It's all about minimalistic in the news. And this is one conversation I truly love. So sit back, relax, and enjoy it. The SDM show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing concierge that helps you put all your marketing pieces together. We are your marketing experts. We are also your WordPress security experts and know how to lock down a website and protect yourself from bad actors. So contact us at Stunning Digital Marketing today. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. And today I have Kira Shishkin with me from Informed. How are you today, Kira?
Hey Rob, thank you for having me. Love that I got a chance to join you.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. We were talking about a week ago before we got to this, and what we're really going to dive into is minimalization and the news, and probably a little bit of everything else because it kind of goes hand in hand. So, what became why you got into minimalization in the news? So, let's kind of tell me your backstory a little bit.
Totally. Yeah, the news minimalism, the minimizing, I don't know if minimalization is or the minimizing is the right word, but it just came out of this frustration, this sort of disorientation that is been a response to the current news industry, which is
Hmm.
extremely overloaded, which is extremely
Yep.
bloated with content, bloated with extraneous materials that have nothing to do with the actual core content of the news, and
Hmm.
just how overwhelming it is to consume news these days.
Yeah.
You go online. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, you're just gonna say you go online, you read. If you're old school, you still read a newspaper. You might watch the news at night, but we all know by the time the 6 o'clock news comes around, it's all out there because we have 24-hour news channels. CNN kind of set the benchmark for that, right? Let's be fair. And now they're
Hmm.
all over the US or all over Canada. Um, Frankly, I think news on the radio, I was thinking about this the other day because I'm a little older than you. News on the radio is dying. Like you get a five
Hmm.
minute blurb and it's like, why bother? So, and then becomes the issue is how much is really news, how much is opinion, and how much is sensationalized, right?
Totally, totally. So in this whole kind of current overload of the news media industry, what we're
Yep.
seeing is such a proliferation of extraneous content. And what I mean by that is this like noise that
Hmm.
isn't factual news, that isn't the news content itself. It's all the surrounding elements of
Yep.
sort of the news reading experience, which include, tons of random images, then
Hmm.
the credits to those images. And there's tons of ads on the left side, on the right side, in the corner.
Yep.
And there's a pop-up with an ad. Tons of
Yep.
sponsorships. This newsletter is sponsored by this company, and there's just it's all throughout interweaved. Even the actual reading experience. I think of some of an easy one to pick on is the Hill. The Hill is a famous political news website, and just
Hmm.
a huge amount of their actual real estate is taken up by their own sort of website infrastructure navigation,
Yep.
where you
Yep.
just have all these buttons, all these topics, all these, little areas of dialing and clicking, and the actual sort of area where the news content is shared is definitely less than half the screen, but in some cases it's less than a third, maybe
Yep.
a quarter of the actual screen is the news content. The rest of
Yep.
it is an eye acrobatics course of how can you avoid all the ads, all the solicitations, all the little prompts, all the pop-ups to just focus on what you actually came here to read. So that whole
So true.
thing. is just unacceptable. And so we've built
Yes.
Informed to overcome that level of noise and that level of pollution in the news
Mhm.
industry.
Yeah, so true. And to me, I'll tell you the word I wrote down real quick while you're talking was factual. And that's a big deal because we all know the news media in today's world in 2025, a lot of it's opinion and it's not fact. It's I felt this, I felt that. I really don't care. I can jump on social media and hear opinion if I really want, if I'm bored. And I'm never that
Hmm.
bored. So and that's the problem. So I'm awful. I'll tell you this. I don't know if I shared this with you. When people send me news articles or say, I read this, my first comment is, what was the source? My second comment is, who wrote it? My third comment is, what was the slant? And my fourth comment was, who was the defined expert in the article to back up the facts? If you can't give me those four things, I'm probably not going to read it. That's just me because I've
Totally.
streamlined how I read the news. And I think I shared with you, I'm a news junkie, or I used to be. And then COVID hit. And I said, I don't need to watch all this crap all day long. And I hate to use that word, but that's the reality of it. And it's not good for the mental space. And all I really want is to know what's going on so I can make good business and personal decisions. I don't need all this extra stuff.
Totally. I mean, everything you're saying is resonating a ton.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, that's it sounds like you're the perfect, customer. Sounds like we built Informed for someone like you who
Mhm.
is, feel the need to be informed, but cannot stand being influenced. That's
Yeah.
kind of what we built the whole project for.
Yeah. I'm a really bad marketer, actually, Kara, because I don't influence by ads even really well. So I walk in the stores and my family will tell you, my mom will tell me, my brother will tell you, my other half will tell you that I'll stand there and say, oh, that's a crappy ad on the wall. That's a lousy ad. Oh, would you buy that? Probably not. Because I know the way I function. I'm more a creature of habit than a
Hmm.
let's throw 20 ads in front of me and do it. And I'm the same way with the news. So yeah, there's no question I'm like that.
Yeah. And people also know and feel when they're being solicited, and it's not a great feeling, especially when
Yeah,
they are trying to do something that is responsible, right? They're trying
yeah,
to get the facts to,
yeah,
influence their life, to get the facts that can inform their decisions, get the facts so they can, make informed decisions that actually are going to be life consequential. And so when you're in the middle of that process that is so responsible, and you get solicited or you get sort of swayed, whether that's through
mm,
bias slanting in a certain direction or it's through ads, punctuating the article in the middle of a
yeah,
paragraph, in the middle of the article, that sort of it breaks trust, which now you're doubting everything that you're reading, which is, it's a shame that we have to be so skeptical of everything that we read because our trust has been destroyed. As readers, there are very few places online where we can still trust that we're not going to get, slanted by bias, or we're going to get solicited, somewhere along the way saying, hey, click here, buy this thing, read this other thing, subscribe to this other thing. The inclusion of bias and advertisement in news, and it's not even an inclusion at this point. Now it's a takeover. It's been a takeover for the
yeah,
last couple of years, completely destroyed news media credibility, which has led people
yeah,
to, reduce their consumption of news dramatically. The younger generations, Generation Z, Alpha, Beta, are just not reading and are not going to be reading news because it's such a toxic experience. And obviously, that's going to lead to many more issues down the line of people not actually being in touch with the world they inhabit. So it's a very responsible, very important, at least in our worldview, domain of media, and it needs to be kept safe from entertainment media and safe from advertising media and safe from all the opinions. And if there are opinions, they should be treated as entertainment or treated as their own category, but not synonymous with news.
yeah. I agree with this. So, I'm kind of thinking as we talk because I love this conversation, and you know how I feel about this. And the two words I write down out of that last part is trust and opinion. So let's kind of tackle this. Let's go to trust. It used to be uh, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you turn on the 6 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news back then, right? We didn't have CNN. CNN is a recent phenomenon in the world, if you call 30 years recent. And we all trusted the news anchors at night. We trusted guys like Walter Cronkite, the Barbara Walters in the US, the Dan Rathers, the Peter Mansbridge in Canada, the Knowlton Nash again. Those guys we all trusted. So when Dan Rather got on the news and said something, we believed him. Now these anchors get on the news and say something, and I say, really, do I believe you? Do I trust you? So that's problem number one, because we know the news is all opinion half the time and not even fact. So that's a big deal. And I think the trust has eroded. And what we're seeing certainly in the TV news business is people, if you look, all the high priced talent has all been cut and they're going to cheaper talent because in the reality is the ratings are dropping like for the 11 o'clock news, anything. They're just dropping big time. And that's part of the issue too, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. There are so many influences that are sort of causing the decline of news
Yep.
into what is now an increasingly less and less attractive space to go into, less and less
Mm-hmm.
attractive space to consume as a user. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's in a the news industry is in a crisis. And one of the decisions that, I've been confronted with is, do I believe that it can be reformed? Do I believe that the news industry can be fixed from within? Um,
Yep.
or can it be sort of fixed from outside in some sort of way? And frankly, I don't. I don't believe it can be fixed at this point. I think it's a sort of beyond repair that it needs
Mm-hmm.
to be not fixed, but fully disrupted. And
Yep.
what's the word? It needs to be, renovated, but not in a not in a internal way. Like it needs to be restructured. And so
Somehow in a way that Uber has renovated the taxi cab industry across North America. Same idea,
that's
or
right.
Airbnb has renovated the hotel industry, or
Yeah,
some things like that. We need changes.
it needs to be disrupted, right? Because when you think of
Yep.
Uber and
Yep.
Airbnb, they didn't really renovate. They disrupted their industries, and I think of informed impact as similar to that, where we're
Mm-hmm.
looking to disrupt the news industry, but not by fixing it from can we be a better news company, but instead, can we actually save people entirely and take users of news entirely out of consuming news information, take them
Yep.
out of being news readers, cancel all their subscriptions, cancel the time they spend listening to the anchors and the time they spend, reading big famous news publications because they're toxic. They are
Yep.
misleading you, they are misinforming you, and they are engaging you in a way that is clickbait engagement, where they aren't
Yep.
truly giving you what you came for. They're putting you in this sort of endless scroll, endless feed of engagement where you're being held hostage. Your attention
Yep.
is being held hostage by these corporates. And our belief with Informed was we could provide the value of news without you know subjecting our readers to the user experience, the consumer experience that has become so broken. And we sort
Yep.
of exist as a concierge layer between the toxic industry and the willing but exhausted
Mm-hmm.
consumer of news industry.
Yep. I agree with you. I wanted to also talk on the second word I written down, which was opinions, and this is a big one for me. I have a friend of mine, a good friend. He's a retired reporter. Notice how he used a reporter, not journalist, for a reason. You know where
Yes,
I'm going with this. He
yes.
was a day oneer at the Toronto Sun newspaper, which was founded in 1971, came out of the ashes of the old Toronto Telegram. and he eventually moved to Star. He was a well-known, award-winning crime reporter. So that was his beat, was crime. And in those days, they actually went on the scene, found out the facts, and wrote a story. Now, all these guys, his name was Cal Miller, and a big shout out to Cal. He's long retired. He's written several books on crime. But the point is now they just throw their opinion out there, if that. And worse, the newspapers are full of what I call wire stories. And for those who don't know what a wire story is, that means AP Press, UP Press, Canadian Press. And they're not even sending reporters out or journalists out, even to derive the facts. They're just pulling the story off the newswire and saying, here it is. And, it's funny. I was thinking about this morning before we did this. And I used to read the paper every day. As a kid growing up, I grew up that way. I grew up that way later in life. And I haven't picked up a traditional newspaper in probably 2 years for a couple of reasons. One, the stuff in it is garbage. Two, the price of a newspaper is $2.50 for garbage, Canadians. Three, I'm not commuting anymore. So I'm not on a subway or a bus on the way to work. I work from a home office. So I don't have that need. And four, even if I am commuting, I probably have an ebook in my hand instead of a paper anyway. So it doesn't matter. But that's
Yeah,
all a factor in all this, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you brought up so many kind of important elements, and I want to focus
Mm.
maybe on the first one, which you mentioned about your friend Cal Miller. It's it's um it's important to delineate the difference between
Yeah,
reporters and journalists. We've talked about
no
this
question.
before, and I love that you've brought that up. Reporters are doing, God's work. They are
Yeah,
out there, collecting facts, talking to people, talking to victims, to witnesses, whatever,
yeah,
the persons in question is. um, they're talking to that person and they are finding out what's actually happening, getting the facts, sort of corroborating and creating evidence, creating, the actual meat that is then passed on to journalists for interpretation, for editorial, for analysis, that then adds the stint and the slant and the opinion and the bias that is then obviously, sold off as
yeah,
as the final output to the consumer. And then eventually that's kind of like the third layer gets reposted through all the news wires that you mentioned as well.
yeah,
So the group of the reporters that, sort of hold the evidence is a very small group. The number of companies that actually report, um, you know, original reporting. They're on the boots on the ground in Afghanistan, talking to women being, you know, repressed by the Taliban, or news on the, boots on the ground in New York, tracking, market movements as they happen day to day. They have the evidence, they have the facts that they share, um, aggregate, and the number of companies that actually do that is very limited. It's very small because it's very expensive, it's high risk, it's very difficult to train, it's very difficult to sustain. So there's a very small group of companies that actually do that level of original reporting. And obviously the group that does journalism uh, is a little bit larger. There's a lot of companies that do journalism without doing reporting, where they provide opinion based on the facts that have been already presented by either reporters or by their own reporters, um, as well. That's obviously a larger group. But then the group that do reposting, the newswire services where they don't even provide original reporting or original journalism, is even larger. And generally, when you look at the news industry world, there are very few and far in between original reporters. Most
yeah,
of them are reposters, right? They,
yeah,
provide opinion, they provide stint, or they just share content, but they don't
yeah,
actually, focus on the facts. They don't glorify the facts, and they do
yeah,
not prioritize them. And so with Informed, we obviously have a, religious level loyalty and commitment to the reporting layer. We don't even touch the journalism layer. We are very, very focused on reporting. So when we talk about news, we don't provide a analysis. We don't provide any sort of opinion, any sort of review, any sort of color on the topic. We stop ourselves at saying what, where, and when happened. Sometimes we add context, but we never add the second degree interpretation as to what the person should think. We think of our work as enabling and empowering reporting, not
Hmm.
getting into journalism, not getting into interpretation. If you are looking to read interpretations in journalism and someone's opinion, there are so many better places for that. There's so many places
Yeah,
where you can go to get influenced, but you come to
yeah,
us if you want to get just informed.
yeah. I love that. And one of the things I really like, having had access to the service for a couple of weeks, is I get it as a text message. It's on my phone. That's probably how I read most of the stuff I read anyway, so I can just call it up. But my question was going to be, how do you curate that news? How does your team go about deciding what are the 5 or 6 stories that you send everybody every day? How do you do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the most important question that I always get. And it's a mix of technology and human ingenuity that we combine
Okay.
to amplify the strength of each and take care of the shortcomings of each as well. So the process begins with our software, with our technology that enables us to
Yeah.
have the crazy broad coverage that other companies don't have. And we go through thousands, tens of thousands of articles on hourly basis, on daily basis, that look through and read all the news coverage of the world. Now we get selective there because we don't look at reposters. We don't pay attention to
Hmm.
them. We don't look at sort of clear stated bias news like Fox News, or if there's a Christian news organization, they deserve to exist. That's
Yeah.
that's
They
that's
have a
okay.
market.
Yeah, they have a market, they have their own audience, but we don't reference them as sort of credible reporters. We really focus on reporting, and that's a much smaller group of reporters in the world, of reporting companies. We also have our own channels of getting to primary sources. So we are extremely loyal and obsessed with really primary sources. So when there's an issue about the White House, or there's an issue about sort of the Canadian economy, or there's issue about, European Union Commission, we don't
Yeah.
cite or report, we try to at least, an article that talks about it. We actually bring you directly to the European Commission announcement, to the Canadian bank announcement, to the White House announcement. So you get straight to the source. And if you want to review what's happening, you're not taking it from some other journalists. You're taking it from the horse's mouth. And we have a strong belief in primary source connection, where if you want to learn more, learn it from the actual source. So just this morning, there was a lot of news around Trump and Trump's Department of Homeland Security telling
Oh, yeah.
Harvard, the oldest university in the US, that they cannot any longer have international students.
Mhm.
And obviously, there's a lot of articles about this, but the issue is also evolving very quickly. One of the first to sort of, spread it publicly,
Yep.
was moving very quickly. And we linked directly to Harvard's lawsuit that they filed
I saw that.
immediately within hours, which takes you directly into the meat of the issue, and it has all the
Yep.
context in there, versus taking you to some, journalist that's going to put some stint on that issue, whether he's going to say, I like this or I don't like this. It's going to depend on the climate, it's going to depend on his employer, but there's always going to be some sort of a stint. And we are so obsessed with primary source reporting. So anyway, that is step one, is the software does a lot of the sourcing and the reading. We have a weighing model that determines its significance, and we really determine our curation based on significance. That is our primary. sort of gauge. We don't worry about sensationalism. We don't worry about what's going to get the most clicks because we don't optimize for that. We are religiously devoted to importance and significance. And we mark that based on the impact of the human condition. How much is your life going to change? Your freedom, your options, your rights, like how is your life going to actually change based
Yeah.
on this information? So if there's a terrible car accident or a plane crash in San Diego this morning, or it was yesterday, it's terrible. There's this terrible thing, but there were dozens of those around the world, and they don't actually change the human condition. Versus
True.
what's happening with Harvard right now is, setting a legal precedent for how education an international leader in education is being done. The bill that was passed in the White House this morning, multi-trillion dollar tax cut and spending bill by Trump
Yeah.
is going to change the world for 300 plus, maybe closer to 400 million people. And so
Mm.
those are consequential things. And we really focus on North America, Canada and the United States. And
Yeah.
we mark that significance based on sort of relevance to as many people as possible and the changing in people's lives. And that's how we kind of make that second sort of step. And in the end, our technology helps us also summarize not just a single article, but across an issue. Meaning, if the issue is Trump versus Harvard, then there's hundreds of articles on that topic. And we're actually going to read all of them, not just a single one, and get that common fact base of agreed upon truths, agreed upon, you know, facts that people say, okay, this is the base facts of the issue. Let's keep all the context out of all the bias out of it. And then in the end, we cite a single source because we can't cite 100 sources. There's no point for the user. We cite a single source that's our favorite, always preferencing the primary source. But that's sort of the end of the process. The last stage, which is a human touch, is we have our professional editorial team review the work that empowers kind of our work, the software piece, the technology piece, and ensure that there is no bias, no tone, no systematic errors, things that are obviously would get in the way of our quality. And there's always that human touch, and we're always going to keep it because it allows us to take full responsibility for our content. Meaning, we don't just say, this is technology, use it at your own risk. We don't do that. We take full editorial, reputational responsibility behind every word and every character that we put in our communications to our readers. And having the human team look at everything always in the end and do that quality assessment is what ensures that we can take the responsibility for everything and combine our increased coverage and capacity with our human awareness and human touch and combine those two powers to create the quality that we are known for.
Yeah. I think one of the keys is a lot of people think this kind of curation, you don't need a human touch in, and you've left the human touch in. And I think that's so important. And we have to realize that in the technology world, you still need the human being in the middle of stuff like this. That's the first thing. In terms of informed, how many, what's your base and typically what are you charging for the service right now? If you mind
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah, I'm happy to share. Um, we are always starting with a free trial because we want to gather our
Okay.
people. We don't want to um, we don't want to get folks onto our platform that aren't actually benefiting. To us, it doesn't make sense, and to them
Yep.
we don't want to be a spammer. That's one of the things that we stand against. We want to be there if you are using us and if you need us, and we want to be able to leave your life easily and quickly as soon as you're not getting value. And so there's always a free trial in the very beginning that gives you the ability to assess a strong mutual fit. Is this actually something that I enjoy, or is this not necessary? We're not trying to be, in everybody's pocket everywhere in the world. We're trying to be there for a very specific type of person trying to
Mhm.
have a very specific type of news reading experience that is noise free in the most minimalist sense possible. So after that trial, we asked for folks to support our mission because the only way to sustain our operations and align our incentives entirely with the user versus advertiser versus sponsor versus partner
Mhm.
versus somebody else is to take revenue only from the user. And we asked for a $9 subscription. And the folks that we serve, so the people that actually using us and enjoy it, say that it's nothing based on the value that we provide, because they
Yep.
cancel all their other subscriptions, they cancel all the things they used to pay and overpay for, and they use us, which opens up 3 hours of time savings per day and about
Mhm.
$2,500 worth of paywall content coverage per month, because
Yeah.
all these news sources that you'd have to subscribe to separately are actually very expensive, and
Yep.
you would have to subscribe to all of them and actually read all of them to get to the level of clarity and concision that we get to for you.
And we do have a problem right now with subscription fatigue, don't we? I mean, between all the news
Absolutely.
sources, all the technology stuff, all the services we use to run our business, all the streaming service, how many people don't have at least four? I'm guilty. And then throw in a music service
Yeah.
and here we go, right?
Not to mention the storage service and the maintenance services and
Oh,
anything
yeah.
you can imagine. You got to pay Google and you got to pay Apple. And then after you're
Yeah.
paying them, you got to pay all the music people. It's a lot. And at least in the news world, we try to be the last subscription you'll ever need.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so it's been great conversation. Is there anything you wanted to mention that we've kind of left out or haven't talked about, or is that pretty well summarized what
Yeah.
Inform does and how you do it?
I mean, I should probably just mention in more of a concise overview, elevator pitch, how we think of informed.
Sure.
Informed is a Informed is a news concierge service
Hmm.
for leaders in the age of information overload. So to unpack that a little bit, we are not an original news reporter. We don't have our own reporting capabilities. We aggregate and amplify the work of great reporters of the world and of
Yeah.
primary sources, and we bring a very tight curation, a very minimal curation, where we try to be very concise, very, very concise, so that in literally 30 seconds, we don't like to take any more than a minute. In literally 30 seconds every morning, we text you an executive briefing that is aimed to keep you informed without being influenced, and give you all the things you need to know to be the smartest in the room, whether that's a room of your friends, of your family, or of your coworkers, whether you're in front of a client, in front of your mother, or in front of your friends and partner. We give you the tools to have the dignity of forming your own opinion without taking other people's opinions as your own, taking those opinions off the shelf. And
Yeah.
so that's that's sort of the service that we provide and we focus on, we are very committed to. And I mentioned the age of information overload. We live in the age of information overload right now. We have
We
for
do.
years. It's
Oh,
only
yeah.
getting worse, which is why we decided to create this. It's sort of many different reasons, but among them is information overload as the status quo for people living kind of in these modern times. The
Yeah.
obviously other prompts to us doing this is also the rampant bias and misinformation that takes place, and of course the solicitation noise that happens alongside the actual overload of content. So there's kind of like three reasons. One
Mhm.
is that there's way too much out there that's very overwhelming. Too much content, too much news. Two is that there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of opportunities to be swayed one way or another, to be misinformed, which we also want to protect people from. And three it's just a sheer number of solicitations when you are in this industry and you're reading. You're being asked to subscribe to this, you're being asked to pay for that. There's a paywall to read this. Now you have to buy something from an advertisement, and now you have to, go click and play some sort of a game that's being fed to you through this media ecosystem that's designed to just keep you hostage for as
Yeah.
long as
Yeah.
possible, keep you engaging. So those kind of the three things we help folks alleviate and
No,
frankly
no,
eliminate.
yeah, no question. If somebody wants to get informed, Kira, how's the best way or to reach out?
Yeah, we try to be as easy to join and as easy to leave as possible. And we've chosen a channel that is the most privacy preserving, where there's no opportunity for us to track you, to track your activity, to know more about you than you would like us to know. So we operate entirely through the SMS channel, which means you can simply text us, and your messages to us are always free. We operate a toll-free number in North America, and you can just text the word "Hey," like a greeting. Text "Hey" to 844-406 info, which is the same as 844-406 4636. So if you
Yeah.
text "Hey" to that number, you'll get right to us. And if you ever feel tired, you just text "Stop."
Yep. Hey, Kara, thanks for sharing your amazing product. I would encourage anybody who's overwhelmed with today's world, this is probably a really good way and probably the best $9 you're going to spend to kind of streamline your life. And it's good for your headspace too. Let's not lie, right? There's so much going on. And I really appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you.
Rob, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy this.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. This podcast has been brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing concierge to help the business owner put all his pieces together, whether it's email marketing, WordPress security, WordPress design and development, PPC, and more. Text Stunning Digital Marketing for all your digital marketing needs today. Very special thank you to Kira for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.